Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, and we're going across live now to San Francisco, where the U.S. President Joe Biden is addressing the press after having met the Chinese President Xi Jinping.
And I'm told that Dimitri of the Financial Times has the first question.
Thank you. And as an Irishman, I apologize for bringing the rain.
Well, holy God, I wouldn't have called on you if I'd known that. No, I'm teasing. Go ahead. Fire away, Dimitri.
President Biden, given that America is playing a key role in two major global crises, in Ukraine and in Gaza, does that alter your previous commitment to defend Taiwan from any Chinese military action? And did Xi Jinping outline the conditions under which China would attack Taiwan?
Look, I reiterated what I've said since I've become president, and what every previous president of late has said, that we maintain the agreement that there is a one China policy, and that I'm not going to change that. That's not going to change. And so that's about the extent to which we discussed it. Next question, sorry, was Bloomberg.
It appears, among other issues, that your agreement with President Xi over fentanyl will require a lot of trust and verification to ensure success, curbing those drug flows. I'm wondering, after today, and considering all that you've been through in the past year, would you say, Mr. President, that you trust President Xi? And secondly, if I could, on Taiwan, you and your administration officials have warned President Xi and China about interference in the upcoming elections. I'm wondering, what would the consequences be if they do, in fact, interfere in the election?
Well, I had that discussion with him, too, made it clear I didn't expect any interference, any at all. And we had that discussion as he was leaving. Look, do I trust? I trust but verify, as that old saying goes. That's where I am. And, we're in a competitive relationship, China and the United States. But my responsibility is to make this rational and manageable, so it doesn't result in conflict. That's what I'm all about. That's what this is about. To find a place where we can come together and where we find mutual interest that, but most importantly, from my perspective, that are interested in the American people. That's what this is about. And that's exactly what we'll do. We're in a situation where we agreed that fentanyl and its precursors will be curbed substantially, and the pill presses. That's a big movement. They're doing that. And by the way, I guess I shouldn't identify where it occurred, but John, I know two people near where I live. Their kids literally, as I said, strange, they woke up dead. Someone had inserted in, whether the young man did or not, inserted in a drug he was taking, fentanyl. Again, I hope you don't have any experience with knowing anyone, but this is the largest killer, people in that age category. And, I guess the other thing I think is most important is that since I spent more time with President Xi than any world leader has, just because we were vice presidents. His president was President Hu. I'm not making a joke. President Hu and President Obama thought we should get to know one another. It wasn't appropriate for the president of the United States to be dealing with the vice president. So we met. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was 68 hours of just face-to-face, just us and a simultaneous interpreter. So I think I know the man. I know his modus operandi. He's been, we have disagreements. He has a different view than I have on a lot of things, but he's been straight. I don't mean that it's good, bad, or indifferent. It's just been straight. And we, as I said, the thing that I find most assuring is he raised, and I fully agree, that either one of us have any concern, Mr. Ambassador, any concern about anything between our nations or happening in our region, we should pick up the phone and call one another, and we'll take the call. That's an important progress. I'm embarrassed. I think it's CBS, but I can't remember who is CBS. I'm sorry.
Mr. President. Judge Jay.
Sorry. I apologize.
You continue to stress the need to ensure competition with China does not veer into conflict or competition. In the past 2 years, there have been 180 incidents of Chinese aggression against U.S. aircraft in the Pacific, and, of course, ramped up military activity in the South China Sea. If that does not count as veering into competition, then what does? And did you issue any warnings against that?
Well, first of all, none of it did end up in a conflict, number one. Number two, you may recall I did a few little things like get the Quad together, allow Australia to have access to new submarines, moving in the direction of working with the Philippines. So our actions speak louder than our words. He fully understands.
And because of the news today, sir, I do have a question about the IPEF raid on the Al-Shifa hospital. As it tries to contain and take out the Hamas that is there. This week, you also said that we must protect hospitals. So when you weigh the target against the number of civilians inside the hospital, is the operation underway just?
Well, look, we did discuss this, by the way, but we can't let it get out of control. Here's the situation. You have a circumstance where the first war crime is being committed by Hamas by having their headquarters, their military, hidden under a hospital. And that's a fact. That's what's happened. Israel did not go in with large number of troops, did not raid, did not rush everything down. They've gone in, and they've gone in with their soldiers carrying weapons, their guns. They were told, let me be precise. We've discussed the need for them to be incredibly careful. You have a circumstance where you know there is a fair number of Hamas terrorists. Hamas has already said publicly that they plan on attacking Israel again, like they did before, do everything from cutting babies' heads off to burning women and children alive. And so the idea that they're going to just stop and not do anything is not realistic. This is not the carpet bombing. This is a different thing. They're going through these tunnels. They're going in the hospital. And if you notice, I was mildly preoccupied today. I apologize. I didn't see everything. But what I did see, whether I haven't had it confirmed yet, I am asked my team to answer the question. But what happened is they're also bringing in incubators. We're bringing in other means to help the people in the hospital. And they've given the doctors and, I'm told, the doctors and nurses and the personnel an opportunity to get out of harm's way. So this is a different story than I believe what was occurring before with indiscriminate bombing. What do you got? Washington Post. I think that's right.
Mr. President.
Oh, there you are. Sorry, I couldn't see in the light.
Mr. President, Israel's war in Gaza more than 11,000 Palestinians just for a month and
I'm
created...
sorry, you're breaking up. I didn't... We did.
Israel's war in Gaza has killed more than 11,000 Palestinians just over a month and created a humanitarian disaster. Israeli officials have said this war could take months or even years. Have you communicated to Prime Minister Netanyahu any sort of deadline or time frame for how long you are willing to support Israel in this operation? Are you comfortable with the operation going on indefinitely, and is there any deal underway to free hostages? Thank you.
Yes, no, working backwards, forward. Look, I have been deeply involved in moving on the hostage negotiation. I don't want to get ahead of myself here because I don't know what's happened in the last 4 hours, but we've gotten great cooperation from the Qataris. I've spoken with them as well a number of times. I think the pause and that the Israelis have agreed to, it's down to, well, I'm getting too much detail. I know, Mr. Secretary, I'm going to stop. But I am mildly hopeful. I'm mildly hopeful. With regard to when is this going to stop, I think it's going to stop when when Hamas no longer maintains the capacity to murder and abuse and just do horrific things to the Israelis. And they still think that, at least as of this morning, they still thought they could. I guess the best way for me to say it is that I take a look. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, acknowledges they have an obligation to use as much caution as they can in going after their targets. It's not like they're rushing in the hospital, knocking down doors and, you know, pulling people aside and shooting people indiscriminately. But Hamas, as I said they plan on attacking Israelis again. And this is a terrible dilemma. So what do you do? I think that Israel is also taking risks themselves about their folks being killed and one-to-one going through these hospital rooms, hospital halls. But one thing has been established is that Hamas does have headquarters, weapons, materiel below this hospital, and I suspect others. But how long it's going to last, I don't know. Look, I made it clear to the Israelis that, to Bibi and to his war cabinet, that I think the only ultimate answer here is a two-state solution that's real. We got to get to the point where there is an ability to be able to even talk without worrying about whether or not we're just dealing with, they're dealing with Hamas that's going to engage in the same activities they did over the past, on the 7th. So it's, but I can't tell, I'm not a fortune teller, I can't tell you how long it's going to last. But I can tell you I don't think it ultimately ends until there's a two-state solution. I made it clear to the Israelis I think it's a big mistake for them to think they're going to occupy Gaza and maintain Gaza. I don't think that works. And so I think you're going to see efforts to bring along, well, I shouldn't go into it anymore because that's been things I've been negotiating with Arab countries and others about what the next steps are. But anyway, thank you all very much. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. This ends the press conference.
That was the U.S. President Joe Biden addressing the press soon after his meeting with Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, and briefly he's talked about reaffirming the one China policy of the United States. He's gotten assurance from the Chinese president that there will be no interference in the elections in Taiwan. What he considered moving forward was that both of them agreed that if there were any concerns that both countries faced or felt was necessary, they should just pick up the phone and talk to each other, and they should pick up the phone and talk. That he believed was a forward movement. And he said that the U.S. is deeply involved in the negotiations for hostage releases with the hostages who are being held by Hamas. And he did talk about a two-state solution. He was beginning to express about what he was discussing with the Arab countries, but he said that he shouldn't speak too much because that would be letting out too much information. But currently, he has told the Israelis that the U.S. is in favor of the two-state solution and they should get down to talking about that. Well, earlier, the U.S. President Joe Biden and the Chinese leader Xi Jinping, they agreed during a summit to restart high-level military-to-military talks. The much-anticipated meeting began with Biden greeting Xi as he stepped out of a black limousine at the scenic Filoli Country Estate near San Francisco before they shared a quick handshake on the front steps. The two leaders then headed inside for closed-door talks, during which they also agreed to set up joint government talks on the use of artificial intelligence, as well as a working group on counter-narcotics cooperation. Well, after the meeting, both leaders walked through the garden at the Filoli Estate, a country house about 48 kilometers south of San Francisco, where they later will also have the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum Summit. Let's get you an update now on the Israel-Gaza conflict. And the Israeli Defense Forces have said that they found a command center, weapons and combat gear belonging to Hamas terrorists in Gaza's biggest hospital on Wednesday. The military simultaneously released a video it said showed some of the materials that it recovered from an undisclosed building in the hospital compound. The IDF spokesperson Jonathan Cornicus in the video said that troops found what they say is that Hamas systematically uses hospitals in their military operations.
So we're inside the MRI center of the Shifa hospital. Israeli troops breached here a few hours ago, and we have cleared the area, make sure that it's safe. And a few of the most interesting things that we have found totally confirm, without any doubt, that Hamas systematically uses hospitals in their military operations in violation of international law. And what we have found, I think, is only the tip of the iceberg. I'll show you what our troops exposed just minutes ago. In military terms, this is a grab bag, grab and go of a Hamas combatant. And if you zoom in and we get some light over here, what you will be able to see is military equipment. There is an AK-47, there are cartridges, ammo, there are grenades in here, of course uniform, and all of this was hidden very conveniently, secretly behind the MRI machine. On the other side, we found a backpack with what appears to be very important intelligence, including a laptop, and we'll show you that momentarily. Let's go see that.
As Israel-Hamas conflict enters a second month, calls for humanitarian pause in the Gaza Strip. These calls have been intensified by world leaders. The Council on Monday, that's the UN Security Council, it called for urgent and extended humanitarian pauses in the conflict between Israel and Hamas in the Palestinian enclave for a sufficient number of days to allow the access of aid. The United Nations Security Council had gathered on Monday to vote on the resolution drafted by Malta. In fact, all the permanent members at the Security Council. During the Council meeting, in fact, the United States, Russia and Britain abstained from voting, while 12 remaining members voted in favor of Malta's draft resolution. As Russia abstained because there was no call for an immediate ceasefire, Israel's allies, the US and Britain, showed their disagreement with the resolution since the text did not condemn the Hamas attack.
We also know that while this resolution is critical, its passage alone will not save lives. Actions on the ground will. We've worked with Israel, its neighbors, the United Nations, and other partners to get aid into the hands of vulnerable Gazans. And we have secured initial steps for critical humanitarian pauses that should be coordinated with the UN to enable hostage release, help civilians reach safe areas, increase the flow of aid, and ensure it reaches those in need.
This resolution is absolutely necessary, though the UK regrets that the first resolution passed by this Council on this matter could not clearly condemn Hamas terrorist attacks of the 7th of October. The barbarity of those attacks should be clear to us all. That is why we have abstained today. But let me be absolutely clear. It was vital and overdue for the Council to speak on this crisis, and we strongly support the resolution's purpose. to get aid in and hostages out.
Well, the first truck carrying fuel into Gaza since the conflict began crossed from Egypt on Wednesday to deliver diesel to the United Nations aid agencies. The delivery was made possible by Israel giving its approval for 24,000 litres of diesel fuel for UN aid distribution trucks and not for use at hospitals. The UN relief agency, UNRWA, confirmed that just over 23,000 litres of fuel had been received, which they say is only 9% of what their daily needs are to sustain life-saving activities. Still to come here on DD India Live. The 10th ASEAN Defence Ministers Plus meeting is on in Jakarta, and India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh is also attending. And India and other IPEF countries signed the Supply Chain Resilience Agreement on the sidelines of the APEC summit. And also, India outbats New Zealand to storm into the Cricket World Cup final. Kohli hits a record-breaking 50th ton. Shami takes 7 wickets.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Change Makers on DD India.
You're watching DD India Live. My name is Mark Lin. The 2023 APEC ministerial meeting is underway in San Francisco with a focus on creating a resilient and sustainable future. President Biden and the Chinese President Xi Jinping are attending the summit. Interconnectivity, innovation, strengthening inclusiveness, these are the 3 priorities outlined by the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken for the meeting. APEC's strength lies in its ability to get countries to work together on big initiatives and to ease business relations without binding agreements. Let's shift focus a little bit to the Indonesian capital, Jakarta, where the 10th ASEAN Defence Ministers Meeting Plus begins today. It's strengthening security and defence cooperation. That's what's on the agenda. The ADMM, it is the highest defence consultative and cooperative mechanism in the ASEAN. The ADMM Plus is a platform for the ASEAN member states and the 8 dialogue partners. That includes India, the United States, China, Russia, also Japan, South Korea, and Australia and New Zealand as well. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will be addressing this forum on regional and international security issues. The External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, has concluded a 5-day visit to the United Kingdom. While in Britain, he met with government and opposition officials as well as members of the Indian diaspora, and he also celebrated Diwali there. Ollie Barrett reports.
It has been a packed visit to the UK for the External Affairs Minister, and it came at a time of political change as UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak carried out a cabinet reshuffle. That meant that EAM Jaishankar met with, and he remarked on this on the social media site X, the UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly on the 12th of November at a High Commissioner's reception. The very next day, he met with the new Home Secretary, James Cleverly, who had moved jobs in the reshuffle. The AAM met with the new Foreign Secretary too, the former UK Prime Minister David Cameron, now in that role. They discussed, we're told, the situation in the Middle East, the strategic partnership between India and the UK, the conflict in Ukraine, and issues related to the Indo-Pacific region. There was a meeting during the trip too with the UK Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, and on Wednesday discussions with the UK National Security Advisor Tim Barrow, as well as the Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy of the opposition Labour Party. EAM Jaishankar's visit comes as the UK and India continue negotiations on a free trade agreement. The EAM marked Diwali during his visit as well, with a call on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak at Downing Street, which was also described as an opportunity to continue reframing the relationship for contemporary times. He also met with the Indian diaspora at Neasden Temple in London and at a Diwali reception here in the British capital as well. At that event, he spoke of a new momentum in UK-India relations. Ollie Barrett in London, reporting for DD India.
Well, let's take a look at other stories making news across the world. M&S Schramberg Flowers, a family business in New York City's Garment District, has been crafting custom fabric flowers since 1916. The company's success is attributed to good luck, a strong work ethic, as well as the ability to adapt to changing times. The company's arts and flowers, they cater to various events and designers. Baby turtles nested in the Pacaya Samiria Natural Protected Area. They were released into the Amazon River in Peru. The release was part of a repopulation project involving public sector and private sector enterprises. The project, launched in 2019, aims to preserve the yellow-spotted river turtle, which is listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List. Picasso in Fontainebleau exhibition in the Museum of Modern Art in New York reunites two iconic works of Picasso's art, three musicians and three women at the Spring, in a replicated garage studio, allowing visitors to immerse themselves in the original paintings. And let's get you some sports news now. India entered the final of the Cricket World Cup with a 70-run win over New Zealand in the first semi-final in Mumbai. India's sensational batter Virat Kohli has now the highest number of ODI tons in the World Cup semi-final at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. Virat broke the record that he shared with Sachin Tendulkar of 49 centuries in one-day internationals. More on this report.
Indian batter Virat Kohli has been dominating the world cricket with his stellar performances. Kohli has added another feather in his cap. Kohli has broken Sachin Tendulkar's record of 49 centuries in one-day internationals. The star Indian batsman scored 117 runs against New Zealand during semi-final match in the ICC World Cup. In his career, he has slammed maximum number of 10 tons against Sri Lanka, followed by 9 against West Indies and 8 centuries versus Australia. Kohli has notched up 6 centuries against New Zealand, 5 against Bangladesh and South Africa, while 300s against England and Pakistan, and 1 three-figure score against Zimbabwe. The former captain made his international debut in 2008. He has scored over 13,700 runs in 291 one-day international matches with 50 hundreds and 71 half-centuries. In test matches, his record is equally impressive. He has gathered over 8,600 runs in 111 matches with 29 hundreds and 29 half-centuries. Under his captaincy in Test cricket, India won 40 of the 68 matches and lost 17, while 11 matches were draw. Virat has led India in 95 one-day internationals, winning 65, losing 27, one match was tied and two ended in no result. This is one of the best accomplishments by him, and Indian fans would hope for more such exploits from him in the future.
Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India Live. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lynn. From all of us here, thanks for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.